cereal.
I said you can't toss cereal, so therefore it's not a salad.
Okay.
We're
live
now. Is the tossability
Right.
quotient of salad the defining characteristic of a salad?
For me, it is.
Okay.
Is there an entendre there, or are you serious?
No, I'm legit serious. Like the fact that you can like shake it and yeah.
Okay.
Just because you've never shaken cereal doesn't mean.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Magic Mics, proudly sponsored by our Patreon supporters and CoolStuffInc.com, where you can find cool stuff in stock every day, and our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, offering the best inventory prices and delivery of cards for Magic Online. I am Evan Irwin, and we get started each week by saying hello to my two co-hosts, Aaron Campbell.
Shaken, not stirred.
Wow. Ruben Bressler.
I maintain that cereal is a soup.
No, it's not. It's just...
I maintain that is...
Your tacos are not sandwiches. Neither are your hot dogs.
Hot dogs are both sandwiches.
They're absolutely not.
A Pop-Tart is a form of a sweet ravioli.
Get out
You
of
gotta
here.
go. No, look, this madness ends now.
All right, fine.
Ladies and
We'll
gentlemen.
talk about magic then.
Fine. And for the folks at home who are curious, Ruben, you're doing okay. Everything was fine.
I'm doing quite all right. Thank you so much. For those of you who were worried, I do live in Las Vegas, and the night of the recent attack here in Las Vegas, I was working on the Strip, but I was nowhere near the Mandalay Bay. For those of you that know your Las Vegas geography, I was about 2-3 miles north at the Wynn, where I work as a poker dealer. And we were on lockdown. Every Las Vegas casino was on lockdown for a portion of the night. Because in the immediate aftermath, there were reports of other shooters and other scary, call-ins of, there's a gentleman at the front desk of the New York, or someone just walked in with a gun at the Bellagio, or something like that. So, and we didn't know what was true and what was false, so the whole building was just locked down. I had to take a different route home, obviously, because the Strip was closed all night. A bit of a scary situation that I personally wasn't affected by, other than there are supportive services offered at the Wynn recently, saying that if anybody needs to talk to a counselor, then that's available, as is available at all the casinos on the Strip. But for me personally, I was safe and was not affected by the event.
That's great. And as far as I know, no Magic players or anybody from the community actually was affected, as far as we know.
As far as we know, a lot of the Magic folks were at Grand Prix Providence last weekend, and those who weren't at Grand Prix Providence weren't spending their night on the Strip. This was, of course, at the Route 91 Music Festival, which is a country music festival, and the folks who were there didn't have tickets to the event or didn't go to the event. Although I did have some friends who went to a different concert far across town for a group called Apocalyptica, which is a cello quartet that plays Metallica music.
That sounds
fantastic.
awesome.
It was great, and they went to that concert that same night, and we're at dinner, and then on the television the news appeared.
Wow.
And among them was Kevin Gerhardt, who's a good friend of mine and a Magic player. But nobody was at the Route 91 Music Festival from within the Magic community, as far as we know.
I do want to give a shout out to Heather Dawn, who's Revised Angel on social media. She is a paramedic. She's a medical response person who works on the Strip. And I know that there was some concern for her when all of this was going down, because it was very likely that she was there. She was not there. However, she was one of the first people to respond after the fact. She spent all day on the Strip the following day, tweeting out updates and images, and just sort of reminding people what they can do if they ever find themselves in this unusual situation. And shout out to her, because she's literally an angel, saving people's lives and just being in the thick of it, and how exhausting that was. I can't. You had mentioned that there was nobody there at the scene as it happened, but she was certainly one of the Magic players who was there after the fact doing her part, and we really appreciate her.
Yeah. And Las Vegas, as I mentioned in the Top 10 episode, responded in a way that was spectacular to see, and really just not very surprising, honestly, because Las Vegas is just a unique city in the world. I have met so few people who are actually from Las Vegas. Everyone chooses to be here. Everyone this is their adopted hometown. Sure, there are some folks that are from here, but most everybody's a transplant like me. They choose to be here because Las Vegas is less about your history and more about your future. Everyone is so optimistic all the time in Las Vegas. And when you come here, you feel that. People are just, even though there is a little bit of that seedy underbelly, and you can feel a little bit of that too, you know that everybody has hope and dreams and optimism for the future. And you could see it in the lines that were so long that you got tired watching the YouTube videos of how long the lines were to donate blood and to donate their time and energy. And so I'm very proud to call Las Vegas my home.
That's fantastic. So I did tweet out, or I did send out the link to our contest. Our giveaway this week is going to be the double-sided playmat of you have Legions landing on one side and Adanto the First Fort on the other side, which is super cool, super sweet. Link went out on Twitch, and you'll have to help me with YouTube, Ruben, as usual, because it hates me, which is fine. Okay. So it's time to talk about all the magics. And there has been absolutely nothing in the past week that is nearly as fascinating as what happened with Popeye Stompy.
Yeah.
So we cut to about a week ago, a little less, of course, and there's these rumors. There's this deck in Legacy, and it's amazing. And it's because the new Pirates came out, and because Pirates Ruse is a card, Siren's Ruse is a card, which blinks a pirate, and if a pirate was exiled that way, you draw a card, and then there's all the pirates from Mercadian Masks, and suddenly there's Rishodon Brigand, and Rishodon Cutpurse, and Skyship Plunderer or something was being talked about. And so the point is there was these rumblings. Like, there's this deck, and people are playing on Magic Online, and they've went 5-0 in a league, and they're really happy that they didn't get their deck list published or whatever. There's people
they were dropping it. There were rumors they were dropping at 4-0. Like, they weren't even letting themselves get to 5-0 because they wanted the tech to be secret.
Right, which we hinted at last week on the show as well.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. So either way, it started out as a rumor. You know what I mean? It was like, oh my God, what happens? And then it's like, well, then, Saffron Olive, Seth, decides, hey, I think he put like a weird bounty or something on the deck list because, first of all, bounties and, treasure and pirates anyway is pretty thematic. But, we wanted to find out, what was going on with this deck list. And before the actual truth came out, there was this thread on Reddit titled, "Let's have a serious but respectful conversation about deck rights and investigation rights," which is the dumbest thing ever. It's just, if you play it publicly, then it's going to be public knowledge, and if you don't like it, then don't do that. And like, if you literally want to keep it secret from literally wizards who can watch your private games, check the terms of service. Don't play it online at all. Just play it with like a third-party thing, or like with your friends and some webcams. Like, figure it out. But that's just, that whole argument wasn't even an argument in my opinion. Right. It was just kind of silly. But the whole thing was spurred, because, well, hey, now people are like sort of after this deck list, and they're going to be watching stuff and, figuring it out. And I started to see deck lists show up over the weekend. And finally there was like the deck list showed up over the weekend, and it was it had a bunch of really silly cards in it. And you're like, how in the world does this do well? It has a bunch of, ancient tombs and stuff to power out your guys early.
Yeah.
And there were people who legitimately have built pirate stompy decks in Legacy and have legitimately won games of Magic through these pirates. It's not like it's straight terrible. It was just not what they made it out to be.
Yeah.
So, cut to Sunday. And on October 1st, Bob Wong. Okay, Bob Wong. He posted, he said it's been quite a week. Pirate Stompy's gotten a lot of attention, and the cats exploded out of the bag, so he might as well unveil it. And he unveils a deck list that is so silly that at one point it has Ramirez de Petrio from Legends, which is like a 6-mana 4/3 first strike, which is ridiculous. So at this point, basically, the game is up. The jig is up. It was a huge troll on everyone to get them, I guess, excited about Ixalan, excited about Pirates, excited about Legacy, what can be done in Legacy, what's not been done in Legacy. And as a result, I mean, I guess any deck in Legacy that can go turn 1 Chalice is formidable in some amount. And this deck can go turn 1 Chalice regardless. So that's cute. But the idea... And I've seen this before where people have faked tournament results to try to sell cards that they've, went in deep on. And cards like blew out. Rishodon Brigand is gone. There's none on the internet right now, and they all sold out at like $7 or $8.
All of the Rishodons that were featured in that deck are sold out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that is a thing, and because, you know, there weren't as many cards printed back then and blah, 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 these things are very volatile in that they can explode and their values can explode, and when the values actually come back to Earth because the deck isn't actually that good, more than likely they're going to be higher than when they started. And that doesn't mean that they were necessarily totally unsuccessful in getting people excited and whatever, and people who were able to jump on the bandwagon as soon as they heard something about it. Congratulations, whatever. But the idea that you can essentially fool the entire community, get everyone excited about this thing, everybody's talking about it, everybody wants to know more about it, and then just be like, ta-da, you're idiots. Like, I don't know, it's just, it's funny to me. It's crazy.
Well, the list that I saw was different than the list that Bob posted. So Jay Bryan, who is a longtime listener of the show, one of our most generous patrons that we have, had DM'd me Thursday night, Friday morning, had DM'd me several screenshots of the deck in action. He had DM'd me a screenshot of his win record. When you finish a league, there's a little window at the bottom that shows who you played and how well you did. And he also sent me a screenshot of the list. And his list was very different than Bob's. His sideboard was a transformational sideboard that turned him into a standard sneak and show deck in Legacy, and he was in fact winning games. You know, there was a screenshot of him, you know, making people sacrifice things that they simply didn't have the mana for, you know, cheating out these things, and it did seem to be a contender. I don't know if it was tier 1 worthy necessarily, but it did seem to be doing all right. And so, you know, there was the list that Bob posted where he indicated the whole thing was a troll. You know, I don't deny that there was some aspect of trolling here, but I'm leery to say that the whole thing, you know, was fictitious, because from what I saw, there were genuinely people trying to make this happen. Certainly after the fact, there are people inspired enough by this to want to keep trying. Eternal Weekend is in 3 weeks. I wouldn't rule this out. Like I said, I don't know if it's a top tier contender, but, you know, I think we have enough minds in the community that if they want to make this work, I think the tools are out there.
I mean, if you want to try anything, you know, hard enough, I mean, granted some, you know, level of power that you're able to use, you know, we could make things, you know, you could bring back clerics or whatever, you know, if you want to play a cleric deck, enough weird stuff is out there, you could make it happen. But the idea of essentially creating something that's a joke, and, you know, they created a joke that got the whole world brewing. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and talking about the idea of ethics in Magic, or the idea of, you know, privacy being a concern and whether or not we should be respecting that, and yeah, this was a lot of people were emotional about this. I remember I had even hinted in a Facebook group that I'd seen screenshots and people were offended that I was not sharing them. They were like, "Well, how could you dangle this in front of us? It's cruel." One guy called it cruel that I wasn't sharing what I knew, and I was like, "What?" Like, I had no idea. I'd never heard words like that used before in terms of information, specifically a deck. And yeah, there was a lot of emotion going on around this deck. There was excitement and inspiration and curiosity on a level I've never seen before. So kudos to them for that.
But the idea that, you know, that you're doing something to somebody by not giving them this information, like, you're not entitled to any deck, tech, info, whatever.
Right. So I brought up the idea of discussing this as part of a red zone topic. But we're all in agreement on the same side of the argument, which is there's no proprietary information here, right? There's you don't get to create a copyright on your deck list idea. So the three of us, at least, are in agreement on that. If you want to keep it a secret, you keep it locked in your basement. You don't bring it to Magic Online. This is why the gentleman who first stumbled across Flash Hulk in Nebraska, if I recall correctly, and then the information got out there. That's why the dude in Nebraska wasn't the only guy playing Flash Hulk and win that Grand Prix, and why that ended up being won by Steve Sadin. You know, this is if you have secret tech, you keep it to yourself. You don't put it online. You keep it to like your 3 people and your cat, and that's it. Shifting focus back to the troll, which, by the way, was masterful and is super intriguing to me, and there are a lot of issues at play here that are actually serious, like the kind of people who spent actual hard-earned dollars on Rishodon Brigands thinking this was a real thing. Like the speculators marketplace that we live in now is certainly something that we need to talk about at some point as a community, not on this show, but the fact that, you know, cards just get bought out and then shoot up to $1 billion. Cube April recently said that they were going to make Judge promo checklist cards, and then checklist cards started getting sold more. Like, it really takes nothing to get the speculator market moving. But I wanted to tell a quick story, because I don't know if either of you two know this one. Do you guys know about Thunder Bluff?
The city in World of Warcraft?
It's named after the city in World of Warcraft, but in a Magic sense. Are you familiar with the quote-unquote Magic deck, Thunder Bluff?
No.
This is from... Jesus, this is from...
I wanted to say this came from, like, Time Spiral or something? Was that...
Tell us about it, Grandpa.
Yeah,
Tell us about it, Grandpa.
Thunder Bluff was another deck that was created in for a Legacy tournament, approaching a big Legacy tournament. I want to say it was Worlds, and people were saying, man, have you seen the new hotness in Legacy? It's this Thunder Bluff deck that uses Changelings and Didgeridoo.
Oh, no.
The card Didgeridoo from Homelands that puts Minotaurs from your hand onto the battlefield and Changelings. Wow. And people were like, I need to see the list. I can't put it together myself. Where's the list? Where's the list? And there was this build-up for 3 months, and then it turns out it was just a big troll. That's the long story short version. This is just another version of the Thunder Bluff. Mm-hmm. That now we have the Popeye Pirates, which is great. It's hilarious, and it harkens back to a simpler time when people believed pretty much anything. And I think that somebody named a deck Thunder Bluff in the aftermath after that. Mm-hmm. That was a standard deck that did nothing like Didgeridoo. That did nothing like the deck was supposed to do. But in any case, it reminded me of that greatly once I saw the article posted by Bob on channelfireball.com.
That is awesome. So what else happened this weekend was the first large tournament with Ixalan being legal. And I actually just saw here we actually have 2 sets of deck lists. We have the Open Series event, and we also have the Classic that happened. And the winner of the Classic was Grixis Improvise, which has 4 Herald of Anguish.
Zach Elsick. You can thank him for that.
Yeah, Zach Elsick of Lantern fame. Shout out to the best deck in Modern.
Oh, that's yeah. Right. Wow.
I have such a love-hate relationship with him, where it's like, he makes these very painful decks like Lantern that you just can't get behind. And then all of a sudden he redeems himself by working on Godfarrow's Gift, by working on the Grixis deck, where it's like, oh, you gave me Lantern, but you gave me this. And it's like, I don't know how to feel about you, Zach.
It's fascinating that, and I'm sure a clear plan or whatever, but it's really funny that Tezzeret's +1 is just making a treasure token.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Well, it's not named treasure token.
Right. It's named the Ethereum Cell
token, which I hate. I hate that they can't just have one name for a 0 mana artifact that sacrifices itself to add 1 mana to your mana pool. I hate that, but I digress.
Ruben, don't be a sellout.
Sorry.
Well, Contraband Kingpin.
Sell out. So.
Wow.
I got it. A sell out. CELL out.
God. Contraband Kingpin.
You can sell yourself out.
Is a pretty interesting card. It's black and blue for a 1/4 lifelink. When an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, scry 1. Yep. With Tezzeret that's making essentially treasure tokens and other things that can make artifact tokens and whatnot. Really cool, interesting deck. The winner of the Open Series event, however, was none other than Andrew Jessup with Sultai Energy, and this was basically...
Is that one the better Jessup? That's better.
Oh, you did not.
I'm sure that one's the better.
Wow.
He's at the better Jessup on Twitter.
Evan, you missed an opportunity. That's Gathering Magic's own Andrew Jessup.
That's true. Gathering Magic's own. And he did a great job, clearly. And this was Hostage Taker's kind of coming out party. This was Hostage Taker going, hey, I'm kind of like one of the best cards in Standard. Hope you like that. Hope you get ready to deal with Hostage Takers for the next 3 months, because that's happening. And this is also the point where I go like, oh my God, please, Wizards, make sure you put in some Hostage Taker hate in the next set, please. Because, I'm hoping that they recognized it was...
3 to 4. I mean, it's just a faceless butcher.
That you can play the thing at Butchers.
You can play the thing, yeah. That's a problem.
Mana. Okay. So yeah, this card is extremely, extremely good. Eternalizing it with Godfarrow's Gift. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening with Hostage Taker. This thing is now $17, $18 or whatever. And I don't think that's going down anytime soon.
Yeah. I want to talk about Jim Davis's deck a little bit because he also made top 8 at the Open. I believe he was undefeated in his first day. He was 9-0. He was playing a blue-white approach deck, which uses Approach of the Second Sun. We saw this list at the last Pro Tour using the New Perspectives combo to sort of allow you to cycle for free and make it so you could cast the 2 Approach of the Second Suns on the same turn. His deck doesn't seem to be using that. It's just a straight control deck. There's no creatures except for the sideboard where there's a couple of Torrential Gearhulks and some Regal Carousels, that Cat Lord, which I think is adorable. But yeah, he's running the Supreme Will, Settle the Wreckage, Opt, Glimmer of Genius, Cast Out Censor, and he's doing the thing with Approach of the Second Sun. And this was good enough to not only help him be undefeated on the first day, but go all the way to top 8s. And I love this deck. This is a deck that I would 100% play. I'm waiting for the Pro Tour though. Like I definitely want to invest in Standard, but I usually wait for the Pro Tour to give me an idea of what's worth investing in and what deck has legs. And I hope this has legs because I would totally sleep this out.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple things worth noting. Both Jessups obviously made top 4 with the same Sultai Energy deck. David Thomas also made top 8 with this blue-white approach style of deck, which is right up your alley, Aaron. When we talked about what you think a control deck should look like, this is what a control deck should look like. 30 spells and no creatures and just grind you out, grind you out, grind you out.
Great.
Its win condition is Approach of the Second Sun, and then like milling itself with Ipnu Rivulet or using Search for Azcanta to go dig deeper into your library to get to the Approach of the Second Sun second copy quicker. We have these settle the wreckages now. And then the other one I wanted to point out is Brennan Michael DeCandio. Is a very talented magician as well, and he made the top 8 with an Esper Gift deck. And you were talking about your God Pharaoh's Gift love. Speaking of Hostage Taker, 4/4 Hostage Taker tokens being something that's might be up your alley. I really thought that there was some good innovation, despite the fact that the second place deck, Ramanop Red, had I think 1 new card, that being Lightning Strike, which isn't a new card, but whatever. Don't break it. Don't fix it. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. Yeah. So anyway, this is a pretty interesting top 8. I think from a perspective of the power level of Ixalan really shining through. We didn't really have a ton of Amonkhet cards the first tournaments after Amonkhet. We didn't really have a ton of looking back at old historic immediately powerful sets coming out. They didn't have the immediate impact that it seems that Ixalan has had. So I'm interested to see what the pros do at the Pro Tour rather than just the first weekend at the Open Series.
Right. The Open Series. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say the blue-white control deck, Ruben, that you highlighted, I love to refer to as bore me to tears control, where there's, you basically win by boring your opponent to death, where it's like, am I dead yet? Am I dead yet? Fine, I'm done. I got to pee. I can't do this.
I mean, for me, essentially, these lists don't mean much. Let's be clear about that. Most of the people who played in the event already had a deck. They added maybe a few cards to it. Clearly, Ramanop Red was just like, whatever, we'll just put in Lightning Strike because, value, which is fine. But for everyone else, I would say that these lists are interesting. They're cool. Like, some of the, what I feel happens is when there's something really clearly crazy good, like Hostage Taker, you're going to see it in there. The Scarab God also showed up, which was terrific, and that thing spiked like crazy. But I would wait until the Pro Tour before you really invest in something new and shiny.
But you remember a couple months ago when we were like, man, how awful is Standard? And then you look back at our last 5 minutes. How great is that?
How cool.
Standard's great right now.
Yay!
We'll see what happens at the Pro Tour when 7 copies of Ramanop Red make the top 8 again.
Shut it down.
Or whatever. But
so the 2017 World Championships are happening soon. This weekend, I believe. Yeah, October 6th through 8th. So that's going to be awesome viewing all weekend long. Really excited about it. And the roster this year, I mean, the rosters are always pretty good, but the roster this year is just ridiculous. Just hit after hit after hit. Sam Black, Calcano, PVDDR, Reed Duke, Froelich, Jensen, Juza, Li Shitian, Manfield, Muller, Nelson, Pardee. It keeps Jerry Thompson, Owen Turnwald, Raptor, Watanabe, Shota. It's amazing.
Can we talk about the photographer? Like, whoever took these pictures did a really, really good job. Absolutely. Like some of these guys look like whole new men. Like, I love whoever did this.
Absolutely, and they did a great job.
I love how sassy some of the people look in these photos.
Yuya's photo is meme-worthy. Like, girl.
Yeah.
So what we like to do when we have big, large events like this, whether it's a Pro Tour or whether it's the World Championships, is we'll do a little draft. We will we'll decide which players we like, which players we don't like, to choose, and whoever gets the most points in the event, it will of course win bragging rights, as it were. So we chose a picking order before the show. And it turns out it's going to be Aaron's picking first, and then Ruben, and then me, and then we'll snake it back, which means I'll get 2 picks, and then Ruben gets a pick, and then Aaron gets her second pick. So that's the thing. I have the, let's see, I have the link to the doc is now in all of your chats. You can go check that out if you'd like. I will link here to Wizards, and we can have the list of the competitors and whatnot. But that means, Aaron, you have to start with your first choice.
So my first choice is going to be Seth Manfield. Not only is he just a beast in Magic, but his picture looks fantastic. Like, he tends to be the kind of person who, his look hasn't evolved very much, which is understandable, but he looks fantastic in this picture. The hair is on point, the stare is on point. I'm completely here for whatever Seth Manfield is serving. So my first pick is Seth Manfield.
I like how you're like, yeah, it's great and all, but that picture, he's good at Magic, but that picture is insane. Really? We're going to bring him up first.
What do you really need to say about his Magic career? We already know he's awesome, but his Most Improved Picture award? Absolutely.
You can do worse than picking a former world champion as your pick to win the world championships.
Absolutely. So, devoted father? I'm all for it. Yes.
There you go.
That's terrific. So, Ruben, what is your first choice?
Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa is going to be the first pick for me. He's coming off of a Pro Tour win. He won his region again. The fact that he is so dominant with his 12th Pro Tour top 8 and second win and Player of the Year title puts him squarely in the conversation, if not clearly in the top 3, if not the top 2. The fact that he's even being referenced above people like LSV and above people like Gab Nassif now, and in the conversation with John and Kai. And still at the peak of his game, PV's got to be my first pick.
Wow. I mean, PV is doing that like second Hall of Fame run thing.
Yes, that John has done before. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's so good, it's crazy. So I get to have 2 choices.
You do,
which I'm pretty excited about. I gotta tell you, it's so hard to pick. There are so many amazing Magic players here. But if you got to pick somebody, I think I'm going to start with the duo of Watanabe, if you will.
Watanabe.
Yuya Watanabe.
Yep.
And Brad Nelson.
All right.
Yuya and Brad Nelson are my 2 choices for the first rounds, as it were. And so, Ruben, what is your second pick?
Man, it's every single one of these guys is a killer.
Yeah,
I know.
It could win this tournament. It's insane. I'm going to go with Owen. I'm going to pick Owen Turtenwald as my second pick. 2-time Player of the Year. Been playing in every Worlds. He's a stone cold master. So you can do worse than picking former Player of the Years as well. So I'm going to pick Owen as my second.
And if anybody can clearly demonstrate that they know how good they are at Magic, Owen is really, really good at that. He's really terrific at saying, hey.
Oh, I know. He tweeted about it the other day.
But Aaron,
he tweets about it often.
That means you get 2 choices.
Oh, man. So my second choice is going to be Lucas Esper Berthode. I love him. I think his enthusiasm is infectious. I root for the Brazilians as a whole. I'm entertained every time they're on the screen. I think they're just a fantastic group, and I love that he's really representing them this year. And I just look at his smile. Like, you can't be mad or sad when you see that picture. Like, he's just so stoked to be there, and I really hope he can pull something out of champ. So he's gonna be my number 2 pick.
Awesome.
My number 3 is a talented Magic player. I feel like he's sort of silent but deadly. Like I think he's somebody who people tend to not make a fuss about, but I think that he performs consistently, and I think he's a good person. He is not Reed Duke, because I'm still angry at him for tweeting about Ashes of Vibor the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, totally done. My number 3 is Sam Party. I feel like he's just a solid Magic player. I loved watching him at the last Pro Tour. He was on Black Green. Like I said, I feel like he's somebody that is not terribly visible. Like he's not as kind of in your face as like, the Owens or the Brad Nelsons or things like that. But he's sort of, he does good work. He's very intelligent. He's fun to watch. Nice guy. I love that his family comes to all the Pro Tours and roots for him. I think that's stellar. And so Sam Party, not Reed Duke, is going to be my number 3.
Wow. So
mad.
So your final squad is Seth Manfield, Lucas Esper Berthoud. Is that right? Berthoud?
Yeah.
Berthoud.
Berthoud. Is that right? Mm-hmm. I'm Southern. You got to help me here. And Sam Pardee. See, that's an easy
Not
one.
Reed Duke.
Not Reed Duke. Look at you. That's just that's weird. Okay. Kicked him right out of bed. Just
You can call him LSB if you want to for Lucas.
LSB.
Oh,
wow.
that's cute.
That's Lucas Esper Berthoud.
Speaking of Esper, did you see that Shaheen got personalized Esper license plates?
I saw that.
That's
I love
awesome.
it.
He has license plate Esper for the state of Virginia. Yeah, quite well done.
Virginia is one of the only it's literally I think the cheapest in the country.
It's
for
the cheapest. It was
$10. Yeah,
Oh,
$10.
wow.
$10 for me to get my personal plates when I lived in Virginia.
Yep, me too.
Yeah.
That said, Ruben, who is your final choice?
Man, there are so many heroes left to choose from, but I want this person on my team because I want to root for them. They are the best Magic Twitter account follow that I have made in the last several months. His tweets are hilarious. He's a good dude. I don't think I've ever actually met him in person, but he just seems like someone I want to be best friends with. I'm picking Donald Smith. Donald Smith was top 4 of Pro Tour AER. He got there with his platinum points. He got there on points. You should follow at Donald WSJR on Twitter.
I would, but I blocked him.
He is so funny, though. He is so funny. And he's just a delightful human. He's on Team Lingering Souls as well. And I want to root for him. So he's going to be my 3rd.
Well, I'm also partially voting for this person because I want to root for them. And it is a close race. I was going to choose Mr. Thompson, Jerry Thompson himself. However, the person I want to root for, and the person who I've known for many years, and I think really is going to make the most out of this event, is Christian Calcano.
Yeah.
Christian Calcano, I think, has a fire. I think he wants to do well. I think he has the ability to go on really amazing runs. And there's I got a hankering. And if nothing else, I enjoy rooting for my boy Christian. Even if we've
moment.
I know. Even if we've had our differences over earlier this year, and me calling out, maybe a certain pro, that's fine. That's fine. You know what? You can have differences and still be friends.
But no, I mean the moment of him. Can anyone ever forget that moment of him just breaking down, and crying on coverage? I mean, I don't care who you are. Like you would have to be a monster to not watch that and not just root for the guy and not feel something. And that was a moment they'll definitely be playing back again.
Absolutely.
And very lovable guy and dresses and cleans up very nice. I remember there was one time he was doing coverage. Was it with you, Ruben? Was he at Eternal Extravaganza?
Yes. No, this was a Eternal. This was one of the qualifiers for the national team in Philadelphia. He was doing coverage with me, and then later he did do an Eternal Extravaganza round or 2 in the booth with me. So I've done maybe 3 or 4 rounds of coverage with the calculator before, but yeah, he's a delight.
Oh, man.
Very well done, cleaned up nice.
So, and thanks to Samuel Stahl of our YouTube chat, who has been giving us the anagrams of all of these players. Yeah. Seth Manfield being Lamented Fish. Brad Nelson is an anagram for Senior Bland. Owen Turtonwall is an anagram for Unwanted Trowel. Sam Pardee's anagram is Peace Drama.
Donald Smith is Damn Doltish.
Yep.
Christian Calcano is Cries on Something. They didn't finish that one out. They couldn't figure it out.
Iconic charlatans.
There we go. Iconic charlatans.
Get that man a gift certificate. That is gold.
Thank you very much for contributing to the show.
We won't get him a gift certificate, but I'll see what an anagram for gift certificate is.
Or give him some doubloons or something.
Those things sold out. Those things are.
I thought they would. That's why I wanted some before we got rid of them all. But
and we're gonna make some more. But it's just a question of when they're gonna get here and so on and so forth.
Sure.
That said, we're gonna move on here into John Avon's Kickstarter, which has done absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
As of this very moment, there's only 11 hours to go, and I'll put the link in Twitch, and YouTube probably won't let me. But you can go there and check out John Avon's Unhinged Playmat Kickstarter, and clearly they had a goal of like $7,000. Yeah. Okay. Well, there are almost $400,000 well over £250,000. Wow. This is one of those. It is successful beyond their wildest dreams.
That's a house. You could buy a house with that. You could buy 2 houses with that in the right neighborhood.
Absolutely. And I've known John and his manager Guy for many years now. They were involved in SCG events where I got to meet them, of course, and hang out with them. Amazing people. The best things should be happening for these people, and they are, and that's fantastic. So I pulled up the Kickstarter here. I mean, good gosh, it's ridiculous.
It's going up as we're doing this. I'm watching the number tick up.
Good. Wow. So so get on that if you want to be on that. At this point, I think everyone gets a signed set of unstable prints. Everyone who every backer will now receive a set of 5 exclusive double-sided prints.
How is he going to physically do this?
Yeah, that's my concern at this point.
Are we going to hurt John? Are we hurting John now?
We've reached producers' numbers where it's gotten too successful, and what are we going to do now?
Wow.
Almost 7,000 backers as of this moment.
He's going to be thanking us from like a body cast, where he's going to be like, thank you so much. I signed everything.
He needs that Thomas Jefferson device where, I don't know if anybody, this is going to be real esoteric, but Thomas Jefferson invented a device where he wrote a note, and it was attached to like a device that had another pen so that he could make a copy of the same note.
A stamp?
At the same time?
No, at the same time.
Right.
It's at Monticello, if anybody's ever been there. But like you could make copies while he was writing it. He's going to need one of those for his wrist so it doesn't grind to dust.
That's so cool. I mean, again, it's so awesome to see the success. Again, there's only a few hours left. If you want to get in on this, go back it. You're clearly backing a terrific cause, a terrific outfit. So, moving on to Rich Hagon and our friend of the show, Jeffrey Palmer, also known as Living Cards MTG, who just were both hired by Channel Fireball in the last week. So Jeffrey Palmer is going to they're adding a senior graphic designer, which is going to be Jeffrey Palmer, and for Rich Hagon, he is going to be the global coverage manager for CFB events, which is pretty awesome because when he's in that type of position, he's able to make those really big sort of moves where, in terms of processes, in terms of who's on the team, what they film, how they film it, if they do special things during the show, or if they don't, like those are the things that are in his control. And of course, I want him to flourish. I hope he does a great job. And I think they're already on a well-treaded path that, I think SCG Live kind of, was there first, and then we, kind of worked that out. And now between Wizards and CFB and SCG, I think we have a really terrific streaming setup that other games would probably be very jealous of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're first.
Okay. I was just going to say that, if there is someone who you really want as your coverage manager, like managing every little piece, you can say what you want about the things that have happened with Magic coverage and the things that can be improved. Rich knows how to organize. Rich knows how to put together a show. And so to have him be the global coverage manager for CFB events is a great step in the right direction. He's going to maintain his position with Wizards, so he's going to be able to work alongside both companies at the same time and coordinate between them, along with Mr. MT Chair. And I think that he's the right man for the job. And I think that that's just it's just very clear to me that he's the one that you want running the show.
Yeah, it's nice to see. It definitely seems like CFB is trying to establish itself as sort of the gold standard. You know, they're really picking, you know, this amazing team so far of really recognizable names, really hardworking people, so that when they do take over, you know, so when the monopoly kind of happens, you know, hopefully we won't be disappointed. So this is all a good sign so far.
That's awesome. So I wish.
And speaking of people who are well deserving and excellent to have as hires, Jeffrey Palmer, I've worked with before. I purchased some of his work for some of the Eternal Extravaganza stuff in the past. He's at Living Cards MTG, and he pops up in the Reddit all the time, and his work is gorgeous. And to have him as a senior graphic designer, they'd been hiring him on like a contractor basis to do the splash images. You know, the famous image of the yellow ball with the teeth that appears before their videos. Mm-hmm. That's all his work, and the various other sundries that he produces. So great shout out to him as well. He does amazing work.
That's great. Based on the chat here, I'm being told by Dilbert that CFB is picking up lots of people lately. They also picked up the guys from the Windmill Slam YouTube channel.
Yeah.
To be
so the Windmillionaires. So we got more Wind Millionaire coming.
Hashtag accents. Yes.
Nice. They were excellent. I saw them live at Vegas. I think that they were, I want to say they were after one of Aaron's panels. They did an episode of Wind Millionaire, and I stuck around for that. And I'd never heard of them before. Honestly, I'd never heard of them before, and I stuck around and was super entertained. Yeah. So well done. Kudos to them as well.
That's fantastic. So lots going on there. However, we're going to move on to Desperate Ravings and talking about somewhat of a sensitive subject, clearly, because it also relates to Las Vegas. Now, when something happens on that scale, and it sucks because I think it's just over a year ago, we were having somewhat similar conversations because something happened in Orlando. So like Orlando, now we're over here with Vegas with you. Like, okay. So then we start to talk. When this happens, people start talking about safety. People start talking about, there's a lot of money in Magic events. The cards are incredibly liquid, which means you can turn them into money really easily. They have no serial numbers. They're untraceable. If I take a piece of cardboard from you and say, this is mine now, a police officer cannot say whether or not that is actually mine or actually yours, so on and so forth. The vendors themselves often deal in large amounts of cash and or, of course, have a lot of product and or a lot of very expensive cards. And, at this point, like, what would stop somebody from just, like, sticking up a GP? And I'm like, well, first of all, there's very large event halls. Secondly, there is security at these events to some degree, depending on the events that are already there. And thirdly, the fact that you're trying to do something in a monstrously large room with tons of people is still a thing. From all accounts, most thieves are huge cowards, and they would never want to put themselves into the realm of, I might actually get caught, I might actually get hurt, I might actually get busted, and I can't make a quick getaway. And for those reasons, I feel like there's not a lot of concern in my part in terms of, like, I don't think like there's going to be some Batman Begins sort of sequence where people are like jumping in the GP and grabbing the stuff and getting out of there. It seems
there's
kind of ridiculous.
Certainly a difference between a theft and a robbery.
Sure.
So, like, it depends on really what we're talking about. Are we talking about, some sticky-fingered individuals sneaking in and walking out unnoticed? Or are we talking about, like you said, some Batman Begins stuff going down where people walk in with masks and machine guns and duffel bags and everybody get on the floor? And that's what we're really talking about. Theft has always been a thing that we talk about with Magic. We're talking about security risks as opposed to, sneaking.
Sure.
Yeah, I certainly, because I was with you, Ruben, last year when Pulse happened. I was at Grand Prix Columbus with you the morning after it happened, and that was something that went through my mind. Sort of the worst case scenario of what if this happened. We are really vulnerable. When you really think about it, what would really stop somebody from walking in with some of these, some of the things these guns are capable of. Shooting so fast and shooting so many things. The nightmare scenario kind of played through my head of what would happen if we went to a GP and somebody lost their mind and did this. And this was also brought up again in Vegas, GP Vegas back in June, this discussion came up because there were some individuals who indicated that they wanted to, kind of troll people or maybe disrupt the panels a little bit. And so there was some talk behind the scenes about what precautions were being taken place to prevent this. And I remember at one point we looped in Jimmy Wong in the conversation because he was joining the panel with Wedge and the professor and I.
Right.
And I remember Jimmy going, well, what's the big deal? Security's going to be there, right? And the rest of us were like, actually,
we're not actual celebrities. We're fake celebrities.
No, I didn't.
We apologize to you, real celebrities. That's what I thought in my head.
No, I didn't take it like that. But what I'm saying is that
I wasn't. Yeah, sorry.
He wasn't coming at it from that perspective. He was coming at it from, there's 20,000 people in a venue, you have hundreds of thousands of cards, and you have nothing. And Mashi was like, well, we've got some people that the venue gave us, and we've got some people in Channel Fireball jerseys. That's security, right? And Jimmy was like, no. And until he brought it up, as somebody who doesn't go to events very much, he just sort of assumed that this was the standard. And as somebody like us, like me, I went to over a dozen events last year. We sort of accept that as just being the norm. And so it was very jarring for me to have somebody kind of call that out of, this is weird, right? And the rest of us going, we just accept this as our normal. And it really made me think about how vulnerable we are, where, somebody who doesn't go to events very often can sort of see that as a problem and call that out. And we just accept that as being an everyday risk. And it's definitely something to think about, how really open we are in these venues and what could go wrong. And
for what it's worth, and thank you very much, chat. I was talking about The Dark Knight, not Batman Begins, because that's important. But whatever. Ultimately, and agree, Ruben. There's absolutely theft happening. There was GP Mos Eisley. There was lots of people getting their bags taken, bags found. Stuff leaves Magic tournaments that shouldn't be leaving it. That happens. However, the idea of somebody shows up and doesn't give a crap about Magic at all, they just see a large gathering of people and they want to hurt somebody, that's a thing. Or if some sort of stage robbery, okay, I don't really see that happening. But
it's also a passionate game. Somebody has a loss, they take a loss personally, or they feel like they should have some sort of success and they don't.
Talked about those kind of news stories at local game stores in the past, where a particularly heated game of Magic happened and somebody got stabbed, or somebody got shot, or something else happened.
Right.
If that happens at a larger event, then it's a bigger issue.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the sort of thing that sets that makes things different. If an event happened, if something terrible happened at a Magic event, there would be a reaction as a result of that. If God forbid, something happens to a bunch of players, then all of a sudden there's metal detectors for every Grand Prix. And that's the thing that they have to have every single time because, people just aren't safe anymore. That's a thing that at that point, Channel Fireball and or the organizers of the year would have to deal with. But I'm happy that's not the case. I'm happy we're not taking our shoes off trying to enter a Magic event.
So what's the? I mean, it's nice for us to talk about this, but what's a potential solution? Is the answer that we need to have metal detectors at events, or is the answer that we need to have only Magic events at venues that have access to the level of security that we need? It's all fine and good for us to have this discussion, but as you said, we've had this discussion before.
Right.
And I would, even if it's not a remotely likely scenario, I'm not the guy to be the only one to suggest a solution.
Mm-hmm.
But and as much as I would like for there to be an easy answer here, I have ideas, but I'm hoping that maybe one of you two have a more feasible solution going forward.
Well, I think there's a lot more feasible solutions, but we're not going to get too political on the show. But what I would say, and I would note this, that, and Chad has rightly pointed out, thank you, Mara Kim, this is a very American problem. This is just not something I think you ever care about in the UK. I just don't think you ever care about in Australia. This is an American problem due to what's going on otherwise. But either way,
that's fair.
I'm hoping that nothing happens. I'm hoping that we don't have to have this weird conversation of, well, how am I going to feel safe at GP so-and-so? Because it usually takes one terrible, awful event before things suddenly change forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there was a threat of this kind that occurred last year for a Magic event. Luckily, that person posted about it on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And so that they sort of outed themselves. But that doesn't always happen. And so I think that, there's a lot of things that can be done, and I think that Wizards does need to look at, and other, not just Wizards, but people who do third-party tournament series, people like Star City Games, people like Eternal Extravaganza, need to look into third-party security to be able to handle this level of danger that could potentially happen in a small enclosed space. I also don't know if I'm overreacting to this because it's the subculture in which I live. You know what I mean?
Well, also, what just happened where you live,
where I live.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have a good frame of reference because I'm literally inside of it. You need to be outside of it a little bit to be able to have a good frame of reference, I think.
Okay, so here's a question. Now you live in Las Vegas, you work in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
How has the reaction been? Is there a lot of sort of security lines? There's security check-ins? Are people being screened?
I'll tell you what's happened for me personally, which is that I've since the day that the attack occurred, I went home from work, then had a day off on the day that we recorded our podcast. Then I went into work, and then I did go into work today. So I've been into work exactly one time since then.
Okay.
The security at my work has not changed much, but we already had pretty stringent security going in through the employee entrance. And again, I haven't gone into or out of a casino through a customer entrance in a month, in a while. I drive to work in the shadow of the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino, so it's not like I'm far away. Like, on my way to work, I drive past where the windows were punched out. Wow. So I'm pretty close to it. Mm-hmm. And I haven't noticed anything personally different. But that's because it's a casino. This place is already a multi-billion-dollar industry. It already has very stringent security. So I'm not sure what the parallels I'm not sure that it's a good parallel.
I've read about there already being security lines and things.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Right.
I've heard. I haven't seen photos of it personally. The things that I noticed were the big light-up billboards on the Strip are all black and white text these days. There aren't advertisements happening right now. It's all call this number if you need help.
Wow.
A lot of the billboards say things along the lines of, "You've been with us through the good times. Thank you for being with us now." The Paris Hotel's Eiffel Tower is shut off. The lights are off for it.
Wow.
It's just a very muted atmosphere on the Strip. I haven't noticed anything different in terms of security personally, but that's because I'm not a consumer.
Sure.
On that level. So I don't have that kind of input for you, unfortunately. But it is worth looking at. Certainly, it's worth looking into, especially right in the aftermath. But the thing here is, can we do it before it needs to be aftermath? Because that's going to be an uncomfortable topic for Magic Mics to have to deal with.
Yeah, let's hope we never really have to. All right, so we're going to move on here a little bit from something super serious to something kind of silly, which is there was a YouTube program this past week who brought up the Magic movie. Remember the Magic movie? Remember how we were like, oh my God, they're going to make a movie about Magic? This was 2014. They announced it. And they're like, we're going to do this thing. We're going to hire this, I think it was Simon Ginsberg or whatever, to produce it, who already does a whole ton of other stuff, and then decided to start doing even more stuff. And between that time period, Warcraft has come out and did terrible. Assassin's Creed came out and did terrible. And
hey, now, Warcraft was a huge hit in China.
It was overseas.
Loved it.
It really was.
It was the only thing that made that movie, I think, remotely profitable. Like, they didn't lose their pants on it, But and that's good. For what it's worth, I have no problem with them making as many Warcraft movies as they want. But I feel like you can clearly see that I think that impacted things in some way. But was it Aaron? Was it you or Ruben who kind of brought it around to what we've been going through in Magic over the past 2 years with the Gatewatch? So Aaron, tell us something about that.
Yeah, so there was a lot of talk about the fact that there had been an increase in stories involving the Gatewatch. And some people were speculating that this was no accident, that this was a blatant attempt to sort of create an Avengers-type cast that could easily be ported over into a movie franchise, you know, with characters that you could root for and a very obvious villain and things of that nature. And so it's very interesting to me to hear that the movie is essentially a bust for now, because I can't help but wonder if all of this was done for nothing. Would we have 2 years of these stories? Would we be sick of the Gatewatch right now if they weren't trying to lay the groundwork for this movie franchise? What would our stories be like if we weren't sort of force-fed these characters over the last few years? And so that was the only thing I really thought of when I heard this news and when I saw this video talking about, you know, the movie kind of being shelved, is what was all of this for then? You know, you made us go through, you know, all of this placement of these characters only to be like, psych. And so it's like, well, that was fun. And it's like, it just felt like it was kind of all for nothing, if that's true, in fact.
Yeah, I'm curious because, I mean, to see sort of the morphing of set promotion and how they do promo videos. Like the promo videos these days, they're voiced, they have incredible animation, like they're really exciting and interesting. If they were to take those videos and turn them into almost vignettes that have actual scenes in them, maybe they take the story moments or maybe a story moment, you know, and kind of blow it up and kind of sort of play it out, if you will. And because they're already at this point for MTG Arena, they're going to voice the Planeswalkers. Like Jace has a voice now, like an actual actor being Jace. There's going to be someone being Vraska. So you're going to assign voices to these characters anyway. But ultimately, I think the idea of, like, you know how we kind of got sick of the Gatewatch? Maybe it was because Fox was working with Hasbro and Wizards and was like, hey, we want to build this storyline. We want them to be superheroes, essentially, which is basically what they are. And this is, you know, and we want you to focus head on. So when we make the movie that has these 5 characters in them and someone wants to go play Paper Magic, they're going to see those guys everywhere. And now it's like...
That's a scapegoat I can get behind. I'm ready to blame Fox for that.
It's all their fault.
Sure, why not?
It's what the Fox said.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the like kind of boring plotting and characterization of the Gatewatch, it makes sense that they would tie in some, you know, suit and tie who's like, you know, when we want to make a lunchbox that has Liliana and Jace and Nissa on it, we would really appreciate it if they had these, like, points that you hit. I guess that makes sense, but boy, that would make a boring movie.
I mean, maybe or maybe not. The movies are all about their execution, but either way, the idea, I think, of, you know, hey, we've shoved the Gatewatch down your throat because of this other thing that was supposed to happen that didn't happen. Right. I would prefer it just show up on Netflix as an animated series. Like
PlayStation Network always needs new crap to film, and they usually do a good job with it too.
PlayStation
Powers
Network
was great.
Makes unique content.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that was
Powers. If you guys haven't seen Powers yet, that's
I've heard about it.
It's nice.
Well, that's neat.
I'm writing this down. So Powers.
There's plenty of places out there that are Netflix or trying to be Netflix that need more content.
Hulu.
You know, Hulu, Amazon. You know, CBS is trying to make me pay $6 a month to watch the new Star Trek show. You know, like they all need original content. You know, there aren't enough people who are actually smart enough to make new TV shows out there with original ideas, and that is literally what Magic is. Magic is an original idea of like dozens of characters with dozens of worlds that are ready to be turned into Saturday morning cartoons. So
I think it would be great. I think it's just ripe for the picking in that format, because it's something that you don't have to, you know, commit a whole lot of resources to, in terms of, like, a lot of the stories already sort of played out for you. They could literally take the storyline for the past 3 or 4 years and just animate it and just go through and, you know, let's see where it goes, and people can go back and trace those things. But whatever.
You're also seeing a lot more of an effort to involve the original creator. You know, I think it might have been a concern in the past where there was the issue. It's always an issue of creative control with Wizards too. You know, no offense, but you know, you're seeing sort of you see Margaret Atwood working with Hulu to, you know, make The Handmaid's Tale a thing. Right. You know, you're seeing Stephen King be involved with Gerald's Game, which is now on Netflix, and things like that. And so, you know, if that's a concern, I think nowadays it's more likely for these companies to involve people so that you don't have the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which we still talk about being horrible, and who was and wasn't involved with that. And so I think you guys are right. I think the climate is just right for getting involved in things like this, and that the environment is such where you can be involved and you can sort of stop things from becoming disasters. And just if movies don't work, I think there's a home or TV, certainly.
The problem with anything media related with Magic is that if they hold true to what we want, it's going to fail. But if they make it a commercial success,
it's going to change what we get.
Then it's going to exactly. We're going to hate it.
It's going to change how they deal with Magic in the future. So
there's no real way for us to get exactly what we want. You can't please all the people all the time.
You certainly can't please Magic players.
Right, you certainly can't please Magic players. Exactly right. That's even better. Even if you do please us, we're going to be like, I don't really love Zoe Saldana in that role, right? We're going to be like, what? You know what I mean? So there's no winning here for us. The fact that it's disappeared, I think, might be a fine result for the Magic movie. Honestly, like we thought about it and then considered it, and we were like, you know what? Maybe this isn't the proper venue or the proper time. And then it just sort of fell off of the plan, and we're okay with that as Magic players.
And that's
maybe.
Fine. All right, so
I'm fine with it.
Let's move on here to a little bit of splash damage, where it's not necessarily directly MTG related, but it's kind of MTG related. There was an article written by Frank Lepore and on Channel Fireball, and he asked the question, is Hearthstone really, quote-unquote, more random than Magic? To which I say, yeah, have you played that stupid game? Seriously?
Sure.
For real? Like, how many, like, because he's
talking...
The
long answer is more interesting.
The long answer is more interesting, because ultimately what he was trying to sort of say was that, well, there's Mana Screw in Magic, and, you know, I just played this event, and I got Mana Screw 3 times in a row, and how is that different than, you know, Hearthstone if you just get some bad draws or whatever? And it's not necessarily that much different. To me, it's what do the cards do? What do the actual cards you're playing do? And they are way more random in that game than they are in Magic. And it's just, I think it's hard to say there's not multiple cards that are very good tournament playable cards in Hearthstone that don't have some element of, oh my God, I hope it happens. Versus, like, you know, you play Magic cards, very, very few of them have random effects. Like, Explorer's random, I guess, but like in a good way that it's filtering and or giving you a bonus. But it feels weird to me because I feel like it's such an obvious, like, yeah, like, is it just me? Do you guys feel like that they are similar in some way?
Magic. So I've said this dozens of times to dozens of my friends. I'm not sure I've ever said it on the show exactly, but randomness is necessary. It's a good thing. Like, you need randomness, otherwise we'd be chess. Oh, yeah. Right?
Oh, exactly.
The most popular games in the world all have an element of randomness. You know, Dungeons and Dragons uses a D20 and then some other dice to do their randomness. You know, Magic the Gathering and other card games use a shuffle effect for randomness to determine the outcome of how the cards come off the top of the deck. Every game has some amount of randomness, or else it just becomes the best player always wins, which is boring.
Right.
And doesn't make the game welcoming to new players. So that's one thing. The second thing is that it really depends on how you want to be served your randomness, right? Mm-hmm. When you come into a casino, you can either go to the slot machine and pull a lever, or you can go up to the craps table and roll some dice, or you can go over to the blackjack table and get some cards flipped in your direction, what have you. They're all random, or you can go to the diner and play Keno or Bingo or whatever. They're all random. They're all just numbers smashing up against each other. But it's how do you want your randomness to come at you? And, you know, as Magic players who've been conditioned to the randomness that we get from Magic, as Frank references in this article, our randomness comes through Mana Flood, Mana Screw, and other types of through the top of your deck randomness, which is why we don't like flip-a-coin cards in Magic.
Right.
But we're okay with the flip-a-coin style of gameplay in Hearthstone. They don't have Mana Flood, Mana Screw. They have their mana gem system.
Right.
But there are cards that literally say the word random on them, which is how you get your randomness through Hearthstone. And there are many other ways to get your randomness.
Right.
Is it more random? That's not a question. Like, that's not a thing that you can answer. The answer is simultaneously yes and no, because every time you draw a card in Magic, it's random. Every time you draw a card in Hearthstone, it's random. There are so many things at play in every single game of both games that's not a question that makes sense when you break it down to its most simple level.
And I would just go ahead. And ultimately, I would just say that I think, first of all, he needs to play Eternal, because Eternal to me is the closest thing to a digital Magic product that has been released yet. And if you haven't played it, just go check it out. Why? Because it's made by LSV and Pat Chapin, and it's like literally, it's just like it's Magic without Planeswalkers, and it's great. And we already talked about this last week, but I don't care.
Can I reanimate things? Like, is that a thing?
Yes.
Okay.
You can reanimate things, and that's super cool. And there's strategies around it. Got it. Done. And however, there was another article that I wanted to point out, which was from a rngeternal.com. And I'll put the link here in the chat and the show notes. But what it talks about is it's trying to go deep on free-to-play. If your game is free-to-play and it looks at all these different options and it says, okay, you know, between the Elder Scrolls Legends, between Eternal, between Hearthstone, between Shadowverse, which is I think it's a mobile-only game, and between Gwent, you know, which one is the best one? Which one sort of gives you the most to start out with? Which one is sort of the easiest to get into? Which one is the most rewarding? And so on and so forth. Essentially, the way they ranked it was that Eternal's #1, followed by Shadowverse, and then the Elder Scrolls Legends, and then Gwent, and then the last place is Hearthstone. Essentially, if you want to play Hearthstone and not put money into it, good luck with that. It's going to be
the hardest of the 5.
Oh, yes. It's going to be the grindiest of grindies. You're going to have to grind basically forever. And like the way he sort of put it and the way he kind of charted it out is that you will grind so hard that by the time you earn the deck you want to play, it's already rotated out.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's tough. And I can tell you, like, I have ground out, you know, not putting $1 in Eternal. I have a tournament winning list that I can play, and it's super fun, and I really enjoy it. And yeah, clearly you can put money in if you want, but if you're willing to put in some time, I think Eternal rewards you like crazy.
Okay, so let me interrupt you for a second. So I've never played Eternal, but I'm somebody who's thinking about getting into it. And so something I'm wondering is, so how do I get into it? Do I buy a deck like Magic Online? Do I do the dust thing? What do I do? Like, break it down for me.
Well, Eternal, you download it and you're able to play for free. They send you sort of through the campaign modes. And the campaign mode, when you complete them, they literally give you an entire deck. And they're like, here's a deck you can play. And you can go play this thing called the Gauntlet, where you play against computers, and so you're able to grind out rewards that way. If you play more campaigns, you'll earn more decks. And they give you like really like useful cards in all those decks. You have the ability to do the dust thing. You're able to grind out extra cards that you don't need once you have a copy of 4 of everything. Decks are 75 cards with a max of 4 of each card. Which is a little more really interesting in terms of like land counts, for example, and or the amount of cards that you're using and why. And also makes decks a little bit more expensive because they just have more cards in them. There's no sideboarding. However, there are player-run tournaments where essentially everyone declares their sideboard to the TO and then uses that sideboard in like friend versus friend games to determine the tournament.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is, so is net decking a thing? So like, I mentioned this on Twitter, and some people had brought up decks that they thought might be a good fit for me. And so can I just run out and buy those decks, or do I have to like earn them or grind for them? Like,
the way that you would buy them is that you would buy like, you know, these sort of starter kits or whatever, these sort of big packs of gems and dust and packs, and all the packs that you open, all the packs that you buy, eventually you're going to open enough legendary, you know, mythic, whatever their mythic rarity is, and by buying all that amount of cards, that you're able to grind all those into any deck that you want.
Okay, but it's not like Card Hoarder where I can just hand them $50 and get specifically the cards that I need. I have to take sort of a longer way around it.
Correct.
That sounds hard.
I mean, it's kind of sort of like it is the most giving free to play game that I've seen, and I think they note this as well in the article. But again, you know, it's just kind of the model. You know, it's the way they sort of set up their thing, where you can't just buy X card.
And see, I'm very Veruca Salt about it. When I want it now. Like, I don't want to, like, that's a lot of stuff. Like,
I mean, you'll have to go buy the packs and then open the packs one by one and stuff, and then go in there and grind it out. And I mean, you know, it's a little bit of work, but I've had a really good time with it, and it's really interesting to see that ranking and him looking at all these different aspects of these free to play card games, that Eternal actually does still come out on top, which is great.
I also wanted to point out that the writer of this article, who this is writing for an Eternal website, does have a section at the end of this article where he talks about what about Magic the Gathering Online. And it is not pretty. Now, I understand that this is an Eternal website, and of course he's going to have Eternal at 1, and then he has Hearthstone at 5 after all the of the rankings. And he said had he ranked Magic Online, not Duels, not Arena, but exactly Magic Online, it would rank dead last in every category.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You have to pour in infinite dollars. There is little to no reward. There's no reward just for logging on. There's no reward for your first win of the day, which is something Eternal does. There's none of that stuff. And other games of that type will reward you for logging on multiple days at a time. Like if I logged on to Magic Online every day.
Again, this is a free-to-play article, and obviously MTGO is not free-to-play. You either have to just be a dude who never loses at Magic or someone who has infinite dollars to be able to play Magic Online, according to him.
I mean, the end of his MTGO bit ends with a gif of a dumpster fire.
Of a dumpster fire, yeah.
Apparently, Neon Eternal is here in one of our chats listening, so that's terrific. So way to write an amazing article. This is the research here was clear, and they did a damn good job of it, which is great. So that said, free to play is rarely ever free, but in Hearthstone, you're definitely going to pay.
The thing I always tell people is that if something is free, you're the product.
It's true. See also Facebook.
See also Facebook.
Yep. All right. So we are going to turn the corner to the finisher. Super Mario Odyssey is coming out soon for Nintendo Switch, and people are already excited for the additions and technology added to the new 3D platformer. But some folks are more focused on different additions to Mario, specifically Mario's nipples. That's a phrase. Add to this the stupid sexy Jace controversy from Ixalan, and it seems we nerds are a bit perturbed by our icons removing their garb. So, which gaming icon are you looking forward to taking off their tee next, Aaron?
Well, most of the virtual gentlemen that I enjoy are already shirtless. Most prominent among them being Zangief from Street Fighter, Kratos, and of course, Donkey Kong.
Of course.
Little gorilla action.
Already there.
Yeah.
Making it happen.
Got that Chippendales no shirt with a tie look.
Hello.
Heyo. Ruben?
Well, I'm most interested in the Maxim cover spread for one Mr. Pac-Man. If for no other reason than to finally answer the burning question of how Pac-Man Jr. came to be.
I think we can answer that question. Have you seen the way that he gobbles that fruit?
Oh my God!
Wow.
Well, and for what it's worth, we'll announce the contest winner just in a second. That said, I'd like to see Gordon Freeman shirtless, crowbar in hand, just so the internet can see half shirt 3 confirmed.
There you go.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So I would like to say congratulations to our winner, Carl W. from Hatboro, Pennsylvania. Congratulations, Carl. Give us a shout out on Twitter or feel free to, just message us on Twitter, please. That'd be great, just because that's how we communicate. So Carl W., Hatboro, Pennsylvania, USA. Thanks for being in the contest, and congratulations for winning. And we will get you that playmat ASAP. Just give us a line, and we'll make it happen. That said, that ends another episode of Magic Mics. Thanks for joining us here to discuss all things Magic. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Ruben.
Thank you.
And we move to our final slide. I want to thank our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, our co-sponsor, CardHoarder.com, and our co-host, my co-host, Aaron Campbell and Ruben Bressler. You guys for watching, and hope you support us at Patreon.com/MagicMics. Visit our website at MagicMicsPodcast.com that exists thanks to our Patreon supporters. Or follow, like, tweet, favorite, share, subscribe to everything social that tells people we exist. Catch us online at Twitch.tv/MagicMics, on Twitter at MagicMicsCast, on Reddit at Reddit.com/r/MagicMics, and on Facebook at Facebook.com/MagicMics. Talk to us privately at MagicMicsPodcast@gmail.com. Follow the audio-only podcast at MagicMicsPodcast.libsyn.com, or find us on iTunes, or join us here next week. Same time, same place, for another episode of Magic Mics. Good night, everybody.